Hi everybody, back again for another cooking extravaganza in my kitchen. I did try to do a fakeaway, a Chinese takeaway made at home the other day, and all went well, apart from exploding rice, which you would have loved. But unfortunately I tried to do it in one take and the video went off, so I've got a tiny bit of that. I may try and edit and put it back together, just for the outtakes as much as anything. So we're going back to baking today. We're going to do something really simple but really worthwhile. It's a fantastic thing to do. It's focaccia. Very good Italian bread. If you like pizzas, you can basically turn it into a thick, gooey, chewy pizza. If you like sandwiches, it makes exceptional sandwich bread, and it's just about the easiest bread I know to make. I'm adding a couple of little special ingredients, but all you really need is some plain flour, some yeast, some water, some oil, some salt and some sugar. Okay, so we're going to get on with that now. If you remember the other day, I mentioned that water weighed 1 gram per milliliter, which makes things really easy for us, because we need water for this, but we need tepid water. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to add some water to this, not a huge amount, okay, from the tap, but we're going to weigh it. Right, so what I want first of all is 175 millilitres of water. It'll come up on here as 175, so mine is because I've taken it off for the moment. So let's have a look. Let's see how close I am. From the tap, I think this is a bit much. Far too much, that's over nearly 100 grams too much. You can hear the kettle going in the background, I'll turn it off. We need boiling water in a minute. Right, that was a good guess. I've got 169 grams. See where we're at. Oh, 175, 176. Now what we've done, you've heard the kettle boiling. I'm going to use boiling water just to make sure that it gets the right temperature. Now I want to raise this water amount to 288 millilitres. So that's 288 grams. The water's just boiled. Let's go. There we go, 289, 1 gram out. And I'll put this over there. So then, like I said, this is so easy to do, especially if you have a mixer. If not, you're going to have to get out and knead, but today I'm feeling a little bit lazy. So I've got my mixer bowl here, and I'm going to put in half a tablespoon of salt in the bottom. So there's the salt gone in, and I've got 450 grams of just plain flour. I'm going to put this in. If you want to, you can use 550 grams of plain flour, but I've also got some semolina here. Okay, remember that stuff that I used to have for school dinners, the sweet stuff that nobody really liked, ended up being gooey. It's actually a type of flour. It was just sweetened flour and milk that we used to give you. Now it's fine for a lot of things, but for bread making it is excellent, and it gives it a little bit more bite. It's good for coating things as well. Okay, so we're going to put some semolina flour in. If you can't get hold of it, doesn't matter, just substitute it with plain flour. So I'm putting 100 grams of that in. See how simple this is? Now we've got the yeast here. I've got 1 sachet of yeast. Okay, that's a 7 gram sachet of yeast, just a normal, quick acting, fast acting yeast. I'm just going to pour this one in as well. Get it all in. You probably don't need every last bit, it's okay. And finally, half a tablespoon of sugar. The yeast loves the sugar. Okay, it eats it and it feeds it, and that'll help it rise. And then finally, what I'm going to do is add this tepid water. There we go. It's a little bit warm. I'm going to add a tiny bit of cold. There we go. And just pour this in. Now, I'm going to use this bit on my mixer. If you haven't got one of these, use your hands. Okay, this is a dough hook. If you've got gadgets, great, make great use of them. If they haven't, what you do, you get your hands stuck in there, mix it around for 5 minutes. Then what you need to do is put it on your work surface and work and work and work on the work surface. Give it about 10 minutes worth of kneading. It's another Joe Wicks PE lesson basically, okay? This is going to save a lot of time, but it's going to be a wee bit noisy, so I'm just going to plug it in. And put it in the mixer for 6 minutes. Right everybody, after 5 to 6 minutes in the food mixer with the dough hook, you should end up with a fairly firm dough. If you put semolina in, it'll feel a little bit grainy, okay? Now all we're going to do now is give it a little bit of a stretch, okay? It's not going to be as stretchy as the bread that we made last week, but it is going to be nice and doughy and quite firm. It should feel a little bit on the dry side, and you'll see why later on. All we're going to do is just give it a little bit of a stretch on the worktop, okay? This is just to make sure that everything is even. If you've been doing this for the last 10 minutes, it should be at this stage already. And we're going to start shaping it, okay? And we shape it by just pushing it around with our hands to make a little bit of a dome shape, and you can pat it down like that. And then what we're going to do is just squash it down a little bit. I'm going to cook it in this tray later on, so I'm going to prove it in this tray. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to flatten it down so that it takes up the shape of the tray. If you're working in a bowl, that's fine, make it round. If you're working in a tray like this, make it a little bit flatter, so it looks like that. Then, as per usual, we're going to loosely cling film it. Okay, loosely cling film it. We don't want it tight, we just want it covered. And I don't think anybody's got a hairnet as big as this. I'm going to put it in one place for a couple of hours, an hour, hour and a half, just to let it prove. Hopefully it should be triple its size by the time you come back. Focaccia is one of those great breads because it can actually be a meal as well. It's one that is normally topped. It's either, in the simplest terms, got a bit of salt on the top, a little bit of olive oil. A lot of people prefer things like tomatoes and onions, and some of these people put cheese on, so it's almost like a pizza. It's entirely down to you. The traditional thing is rosemary and garlic. That would be fantastic, beautiful. If you want to use it as a sandwich, I would say just a bit of salt. So, while the bread's proving, we can prepare the toppings, okay? And I've got a few different toppings that I'm going to put on. Because I'm making quite a long, thin bread in that big tray that you saw before, I'm going to do a mixture because not everybody in my house likes tomatoes, not everybody likes rosemary, not everybody likes onions, not everybody likes garlic. So I'm just going to split it up in 3 or 4 different areas. We're going to have one area that's going to be plain. But first of all, tomatoes. If you've got normal sized tomatoes, that's great. If you've got baby tomatoes or these piccolo tomatoes, I think some of them are called, these are just a mixture. All you're going to do, you don't want to cut them too thin, you want to cut them in half. You want a little bit of bite left in there, a little bit of size, because these are going to cook as well. If you cut them too thin, there's half a chance that they might burn. Okay, so we'll just put them in. Lovely, lovely, flavoursome tomatoes. The other thing that we can put in is onion. Oh, I found another tomato. I'll cut that. There we go. Is onion or shallot. I've got these shallots here. These are lovely, just a little bit milder than a lot of onions. And they make great toppings, but also, if you can peel the outside, like I'm doing now, because they're in rings like this, they make prettier bread. Doesn't taste any better, it just looks a little bit prettier, so we're very careful. Look how I'm using the knife. I'm using my fingers as a guard, and I'm resting the knife against my blade, but away from my fingers, so I'm always cutting away. Don't cut like that, cut like that. The knuckles won't get cut unless, of course, you bring it up and chop it. So rest the knife against there. All you can do is pull the blade through. Go 1 round, 2, 3. Don't do them too thin. make them too thin, just like the tomatoes, they might burn. So we've got these there, lovely, nice shallots. And finally, garlic. I've got these lovely big garlic bulbs, which last a fairly long time, but what we want to try and do is find the biggest cloves. You can't have too much garlic on focaccia. So, there we go. That'll do, because I'm only using a quarter of the bread. Now, again, don't want to squash this and leave them in slices, so I cut off the bottom bit, and then hopefully, as it is, it's fairly easy to peel. Sometimes people will slice off the bottom bit and put them in hot water, let them soak for about 10-15 seconds, and they become easy to peel. To be honest, I think the fat with the hot water is not worth it. So there we go. Just peel off the skin. Get rid of the paper, as it's called. And these can be a bit thinner than the onion. But we want nice slices of garlic. We don't want it chopped, we want slices. Wow. It stinks. I love the smell of garlic. Put that in our bowls. And there we go. We've got shallots, tomato, garlic. I haven't got any fresh, but I'm going to use some rosemary as well. So I've got some dried rosemary, not too much of this, even though it is fantastic in it. And we're going to add a little bit of salt later on as well. So hopefully we'll end up with some delicious focaccia in about 2 hours' time. Hi everyone, back again. We've been proving focaccia for some time now. So I'm just going to tip mine out onto a tray. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to line the baking tray first. So this is what mine looks like. It's a little bit cracked. That's because it has got semolina in it. If you haven't got semolina, it won't look as cracked as this. And you can see it's a little bit darker on the top, and that's just where I added the oil. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to tip it out on the cling film that's on it. And then I'm going to line the bottom of the tray. And I'm going to show you what we've got to do with it next. So I'll just tip it out like this. There we go. Got the bottom of the tray. I'm just going to put some oil on. This spray stuff's really useful. I'm going to put some baking parchment or greaseproof paper in the bottom, just because this stuff will stick, and you'll see why it might stick in a minute or two. Although in real time it's about an hour. And all I'm going to do is put this back in. Now then, focaccia is quite a soft bread, but you need to spread it out in the bottom of your baking tray. If you use semolina, it will be a little bit easier to do than if you use flour, all flour, because the semolina is a little bit more brittle. So you stretch it out, and be careful when you're stretching it out, just use your fingertips like that. That's really important that you use that. But also to stretch to the corners, because the corners can sometimes end up being a lot thinner. Okay, so you want to move it from the middle, where it'll be more doughy, to the corners, it'll be thinner. Then all I'm going to do, spray it again, put the cling film back over the top, make sure there's no gaps. I had a gap in mine. Okay. And we're going to set it off just to prove it. Hi everybody, we're back. The bread smells fantastic. We've got the focaccia here now. It's risen about 3 times its size. So when it's about 3 times its size from when you put it in for the last proof, it should be ready to cook. Now, It looks like wet dough. It is a wet dough. It's going to get wetter, and you'll see why in a second. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to set the oven to 220 degrees. We don't necessarily need to put a baking tray in the bottom to catch water like I've got in my oven already. What we need to do is actually just get the temperature up, and it'll only take about 18 to 20 minutes to bake. So I'll put it on now, and we're going to embellish this bread now. Right, focaccia is a very, very tasty type of bread, and it's tasty from what you put into it. Now, it's a lovely springy dough, and you can see that we can poke holes in. This is what I need you to do. You need to poke holes in this bread. These holes are really important because they are going to catch some flavour. Okay, and the flavour comes from our toppings. Now then, we're going to bury these. So tomatoes first of all. Sprinkle them over. I'm going to do it in 3 or 4 sections, just simply because some people in my house don't like tomatoes. Don't see why. Tomatoes are brilliant. So I'm going to bury some of these tomatoes in the bread. We want bits sticking out, we want some in, and what we'll find is that some will go a little bit crispy and a little bit drier, some will stay a little bit chewy and unctuous, and it'll just flavour the bread. So we've got the tomatoes in there, some, like I said, sticking out, some sticking right in, virtually buried. Lovely, lovely flavours. Don't try and force them in though too much. Garlic. Garlic can live pretty much everywhere. You don't need to force this in. It's nice to sit on the top because you'll see what will happen with this. In that we can push it in a little bit, but it actually makes quite a nice pattern on the top. We don't want it clustered too much. You don't have severe garlic breath. Nothing wrong with garlic breath, but it's better if we just spread it out so the flavour is spread a little bit. A couple bits more. As you can tell, everybody in this house likes garlic, so put that everywhere. Shallots, again, a bit like the tomatoes, these should go a little bit chewy, but onions can go bitter if they burn. So you do want to cook them 18 minutes or so in 220, it's not going to make it too bad. Just pop the middle out of this one. Sometimes the rings are a little bit pretty if they're separated. Rosemary, if you can open the jar, there we go, just a sprinkling of rosemary all over the top, everywhere. It's a great herb, rosemary, it goes with a lot of things. Loves garlic, loves tomatoes, loves olive oil. You don't need to bury that. Now that looks like we're virtually done, but this is the secret. You have got to add oil to focaccia. This sort of loaf would take about 50-60 mils, but the secret is to do this. I've got a jar of about 40 mils of water. I'm going to add another 40 or 50 mils of olive oil. It looks bonkers what I'm going to do, but it really is the secret to the best focaccia. I'm going to close this jar and I'm going to give it a shake. Good shake. Get it all shaking about. It's all very well mixed, nicely emulsified, and all I'm going to do is just pour it over the top. It looks like an absolute disaster, don't worry. It's supposed to look like this. Basically, we're going to steam this bread. I'm going to add plenty of salt. This is quite coarse. If you've got that sea salt, that's fantastic. Use a bit more. It's not actually as much as it looks. This is kosher salt, so it's not quite as as strong as table salt. I'm going to whack this over in the oven for about 20 minutes. Maybe after about 15 minutes I might come and top some cheese on it as well. Just see what people like. But you can always add cheese and stick it on the grill later on if you want. Okay, so we're going to put it in there and see you in 20 minutes. Hi everybody. You can see this is the focaccia now. All that water has disappeared. It's basically steamed the bread, so it should be lovely and fluffy on the inside. Nice and crisp on the top. Can you hear that? It's just come out of the oven. I sprinkled a bit of cheese on as well for extra flavour, and you can see that the onions, a little bit of singe on the outside but soft where it's been actually in contact with the bread, all about here and there. This end, just garlic, this bit shallots, and this bit tomato, all with a bit of cheese on the top. That'd be great for sandwiches later on as well, but it's all beautiful bread. If you leave it for about 20-30 minutes before you actually eat it though, because of the amount of oil in there, it'll be very, very hot. But also, you really don't want to be eating really hot bread. It'll give you bad indigestion. But if you come back in half an hour or so, slice that up,